Attendees. Oh, there we are. Doreen. All right. Hi, everybody. So thank you for coming today. And I guess this is not an interactive meeting. I thought I would be interacting with everybody, but and I'm not used to doing a Zoom meeting in such a fashion. But let's see if I can figure out how we can interact with people. No, let's see. We can do questions and answers, but it doesn't look like I get to hear your voices or interact with you. And I apologize for that. So, you know, when they scheduled this webinar today, you were supposed to, this webinar is supposed to be about, you know, pricing it right. You know, we're in a seller's market right now, and pricing is crazy, and bidding wars are on, like full game. So as an appraiser in this market, it's just like really challenging and frustrating, you know, because there are so many rules, you know, as an appraiser that I have to follow. And let me just demonstrate to you an appraisal that I'm working on now. Let's take a look here. Okay. I'm not sure. Let's see. How do I have the ability to share my screen? So let's share. I will do a screen share with you. And I believe everybody can see my screen now. Let's see here. So let me go. This is my appraisal software. And these are some of the files that I'm working on now. And let's go here. It takes a minute to populate. And I'm looking for something that might be a purchase. Okay, so I'd like to pick something in Florida if I can. I travel back and forth between Florida, Iowa, and Nebraska. And because I have a regional appraisal company in Nebraska and Iowa too. So take a look here. That's going to take a minute to populate. Okay. We'll come back to that in a minute. Is everybody able to see my screen? And how, okay, so chat log, I will look at the chat here. Yes, everybody says, yeah. Okay, good. So let's, this is really an experiment to me, and I apologize to you. I was thrown into this meeting a few minutes ago, unprepared, and that doesn't work. And I'm not used to doing a Zoom meeting where I don't get to hear or see you. At any rate, we're going to figure this out, and hopefully all of you are going to get something out of this brief webinar. All right, so let's go back to pricing it right. Okay. Let me just give you a clue of how an appraiser prices a property. And let me also make sure that everybody can hear me. So, oh, I see. Okay, allowed to talk. Hey. I'm trying, if you guys don't mind, I'm going through and giving you permission to talk. Okay, and your microphones are on mute, but this might give some more interaction here. Okay, so I've got everybody's. All right. Okay, good. Doreen, I can hear you. Your microphone's on and so forth. Jackie, Kelly, Carrie. Okay. Promote to panelists. Allowed to talk is unavailable. Okay. Okay, great. All right. So I think now we're all on here. I feel like I'm more connected now to everybody and being able to see everybody. I just, I have to be connected with you guys. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So we started off a little rough here, but the webinar, in my understanding, is how to price it right in this crazy market so that your transaction still goes smooth, even though maybe your property gets listings get bid up way above list price. And you know what? How to price it right if you got that buyer too, because that's also a challenge, you know, trying to compete in this crazy market that we're in. And it's not just Florida, it's everywhere. It's Nebraska, Iowa, where I'm appraising as well. Every house has 10 buyers. You know, there's such a shortage of listings. And you know, the hard part as an appraiser is following is, you know, I don't want to set the price, okay? It's not up to me to set the price. The definition of market value is the most likely price a home will sell for if it's exposed to the open market a reasonable amount of time. Now, that definition is extended, not only if it's exposed a reasonable amount of time, but also if all parties in the transaction are educated in the marketplace and do not have an undue duress to buy or sell. Okay, what does that mean, an undue duress to buy or sell? That means, you know, that there isn't some pressure to sell it in one day because they've got to get the cash because they're going into foreclosure, or there is a court ordered to sell because it's a divorce and the judge has said it has to be sold, you know, and now everybody knows that's going to affect the price because it's a forced sale. So these are some of the things can affect the price of the value of a property. So the most likely price is without any of those extra pressures. But guess what? I mean, we have pressures now of people bidding on things because they need a place to live. You know, they're in an Airbnb for 1 month and they've only got, you know, and they're going to have nowhere to go in 45 days or, you know, so that they're under pressure to buy. A lot of these people that are bidding high. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
What would somebody say about that? Let's see. And you can unmute yourself and comment. Would anybody share about a buyer, you know, who's under pressure to buy? Does anybody have that experience?
Yes. People, especially people who are relocating here, whether that be for work or
Right,
family
yeah.
reasons and whatnot, and they've sold their house and now they have to find a new home.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so what we're experiencing now is when you're right, you know, when you're working with a buyer and also you have the seller, okay, there's some decisions to make here, because if you get these multiple offers, now you have to decide, well, great, I have 10 offers, everyone has great financing, and it's bid up $10,000 over list and maybe $10,000 over anything that's sold in the neighborhood. And so how do you, what assurance do you have that the appraisal is going to come in and where it's going to come in and who's going to pay that difference? Because that is it right there. I'll give you an example of an instance where I really struggled. Let me pull up that appraisal and kind of give you the thought process I went through on this appraisal. Okay, and let's see. It was just recently. So let's see here. And I apologize that I am unprepared, you guys. Long story, but let's just for this appraisal. Here it is, Bayshore. Now this is an interesting appraisal, okay? And this speaks to everything that this webinar is supposed to be about today. So let me get this file open. And thank you so much for your patience, guys. Your time is valuable, and I know what it took for you to get on this meeting today and make the time and jump on here. So I hope I can make it worth your while. While that's opening on the software into that, I'm going to open the work file. Okay. So, let's see. Of course, I'm going to have a malfunction on software while I'm in the middle of a webinar, but we'll get that remedied here. Let's see. So we want to go to completed reports, and it was 240. Okay. Okay, so here, so when I get an appraisal order, the first thing I do is I start my work file. And when I create my work file, I look at every aspect of this appraisal. Taxes are part, I have to report the taxes. I look at the MLS listing, what it was listed for, how long it was on. I look at the information about the condo association or the neighborhood, so be it. And then I also look at the market conditions in the area, the market area. I have to have all this information compiled, to work with this appraisal or to, and to put a value on this property. And so, one of the first things, let's see if I got that file open yet. Not open. So obviously, the first thing that I did is I looked in the development to see, well, what has sold recently and what is going to be comparable to this property. Okay. And what I discovered was that the subject was going to be the highest sales thus far in the neighborhood. So let's just go. The first page of an appraisal report is all the information about the condo, about the offer, about the listing, about the neighborhood, about the market in the neighborhood, what things are selling for over the course of the last year, the development, the information about the development if it's a condo, and finally you come to the information. Now this is a little bit unique form than a single family home, but a lot of us do condos, so I think that this will make a good example for us. So one of the things I reported on is the condition of the property. That's rated a C2. And we're not going to talk about those things today, but we can get into that later. But the kitchen was completely remodeled. Everything in the condo was brand new, like down to the studs, new. And not only was it new, but it had some really radical, things that you just don't see. It had zone heating and air conditioning for the different rooms. It had, and they had made a large walk-in closet that wasn't, typical. They had added all new hurricane windows. I mean, a new electrical panel, everything was new. So you can imagine, the buyer really wanted to buy this property. So you can see my grid here, okay? This is what sold in the neighborhood. This is what sold in Harbortown condos in the last year. And you can see that the sale price that was offered was 165, and the units that had sold recently in there that were similar square footage and bedroom and bathroom utility were what they had sold for. Now what I had to hang my hat on was this 155. And so I dug deep into that file or that listing, and I looked at all the pictures, read all the comments, and really it was completely remodeled too. However, the air condition, I even got down, most appraisers won't do this, but I do the extra work because this is people's lives at stake, the buyer's new home, the seller's investment for whatever reason. And there's a lot of people who are affected by the outcome of this appraisal. So I really do my due diligence. And the outcome of this appraisal, it came in low. I did a adjustment for condition based on a paired sales analysis. So I was able to extract this adjustment based on that I had a property that was the same condition, and then I had two properties that were of lesser condition to make that adjustment. And this is where it came out. Now, Fannie Mae has a rule. Whenever they write a loan on a property, the unadjusted sale prices need to bracket the value of the property, okay? The only highest sale I had was 155. So most appraisers, here's where you're gonna run into problems, okay? Most appraisers are going to say, well, I cannot appraise it any higher than 155 because that is the highest sale in the neighborhood. And that's what Fannie Mae guidelines say, that the value can't be higher than any of the unadjusted sale prices, okay? Not true. All right, you do, as an appraiser, you do have to, one of the goals of your appraisal is to bracket that unadjusted sale price by the value. But if you can't, then you can explain it, okay? So in this instance, because of the market is the way it is, and I didn't have anything recent and comparable to demonstrate this upper end, 162, 159, and 158 is how these adjusted out after I did my adjustments. I was looking for more evidence to support my value because I didn't have one that was unadjusted. So what I did is I researched and I found two other developments that had pending sales. This is how crazy the market is right now, okay? So these two sales I took from other developments, and I was able to justify this because these also had the same situation going on. The history behind both of these was that these were about to be the highest sales in the neighborhood. And for me, that was enough to demonstrate the increasing market and that I had to go above what was the highest sale that I could bracket. Okay. So that is, that's an appraiser who will do that. That takes a lot of extra work and a couple of extra hours, to be honest. So, at least 2 or 3 extra hours to do those spreadsheets, to really examine the market, to really look at those. Most appraisers aren't going to do that. So, maybe it's up to you, to help provide some of that information. All right, so I'm going to take questions right now. Everybody has the ability, I think, to talk or ask questions. And I would like to really just specifically get into any questions that you guys have.
I have a question.
Okay, who is this?
My name's Kelly Calasero. I'm with Keller Williams St. Pete.
Okay.
My question, as just the last thing that you mentioned, if we have an opportunity to provide some comparables that helped us arrive at the price that we arrived at. I've heard different things about appraisers' willingness, or I don't know what the exact word is, but to accept that sort of information from an agent. Some are very against receiving any information. And can you just help me to understand if there's a rule, as far as that goes?
Yeah, let's talk about, that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. As a 20-year veteran appraiser and somebody who owns a regional company, and I manage several appraisers, and I've trained 20 appraisers in my career, you can't help me. I'm open to it. If there's a sale or there's something that I may have missed, sometimes maybe people don't do data entry properly on the MLS, and so I might miss a sale because it didn't have the right square footage or something, and so it wasn't in my criteria. You can help us, but what I found over the years is most real estate agents don't know a thing about the comparable analysis and what I'm required to do to arrive at a credible opinion of value. Okay. And I'm more than willing, I'm more than happy, when you guys hand me those listings, I'll look through them. And I really like to take my lumps up front. If I know I'm coming in short, I'll call you and I'll say, this is your chance. I'm coming in short. This is what I came up with. And if you have something that I missed, I'd like to hear it. And otherwise I'm going to wrap this up, and it is what it is. Let me show you something here in my email. Here's what happens when I upload an appraisal.
Appraiser.
Go ahead. What was that?
Oops, sorry. I forgot I wasn't on mute.
Oh, okay. All right, Doreen, if you want to put yourself on mute. Okay, so let me demonstrate to you guys what happens to appraisers so that if you want to try to help, it's a possibility. Okay, so let's go here. Let's see if I can find it. SSR. Okay, SSR here. This will be interesting because this is the actual SSRs on that appraisal that I did. So when an appraisal gets submitted, if the lender, and 99.9% of the time, the lenders are using a Fannie Mae underwriting tool, the appraisal has to go through a scrutiny. It has to go through a process called collateral underwriter, and it gets what's called a UCDP submission, or summary report, okay? And it's called an SSR. And most appraisers never ever see an SSR report. I just happen to be privileged to get to see some of these because I have a close friendship with a lender who shows me my SSR scores. Okay, so you can see here what happens is this is a machine. Okay, this machine looks at all the rules. It runs an algorithm with every rule that is applied to an appraisal. And what happens is the appraisal gets a score. Any score below a certain amount causes that appraisal to have extreme scrutiny. Okay, any score high enough causes the people no one even reads the appraisal. It goes right through with sailing colors. So the appraisers aren't the bad guys. It's what the federal government has created to protect the consumers and the lenders, so that we don't have another crash. Okay. So this is the SSR scores for that appraisal report. That's when it's submitted. It was scored at, I'm trying to find the score on here. Fannie Mae. Let's see, if I go down. You can see on each one, it gives me a risk. The collateral underwriter risk is a 2.8 on a scale from 1 to 5. So this appraisal is at a medium risk. If it was a 1 or a 2, that would be an excellent appraisal with no, hardly any risk. But when it starts to get higher than a 2, and especially when it starts to get into a 3 or a 4, that's the more scrutiny the appraisal will have. If it gets, as it gets to a certain point, it'll go to a peer review, a field review. It'll go to, it has different levels of confidence, is what I'm trying to say. And you can see the warnings. I don't know if you can read it. It's very small print, but it says, warning, the condition adjustment for comparable number 2 is larger than any peer or model adjustment. It says, warning, the market data indicates a positive time adjustment may be applied for comparable number 3, and so on. So every appraisal gets this score and a confidence level from the underwriter. So how do you assure that the appraisal is going to get underwritten and that the value opinion is going to be credible? Okay. Let's see if I have my commentary here on how I do that. Under here. So I do. All right. So what I do is I explain, if I know especially when I know my score is going to be low, I'm going to explain so the underwriter, can see where I'm coming from. So my commentary on this appraisal was, I'm not able to bracket the unadjusted sale price with a recent closed sale. We are in an appreciating market. There are no recent closed sales similar to the subject's condition, which bracket the subject value in the subject's immediate development. Condition and time adjustments were warranted for the comparables, as the condo market overall in Clearwater has increased 5 to 10% in the last year. Now, I have facts and figures in my work file to back that up. I don't just say that, I have to back it up. I realize the purchase price is $165,000 and the upgrades are substantial. And then I, go on to quote the guideline. The subjects, and then I also go on to remark, because one of the biggest concerns that you cannot appraise something over the highest unadjusted price is that it might be an over improvement for the market. So I go on to explain that the subject's not an over improvement, that there has been a sale, and that there are pending sales in the condo market in Clearwater, which are also upgraded with similar condition and upgrades. And that was my justification. Okay, so this appraisal was accepted by this lender. Once, when they read my explanations, even though my score was, pretty high, almost a 3, they still underwrote the loan because I offered enough detailed information to back up my opinion and why I had to go over the unadjusted sale price. So, all right, let's see, there were some questions. All right, on the chat log. All right. All right, so Yvette, Doreen, Patty, do you use the MLS and tax records to study market areas? I do not use tax records. Well, okay, when you say, do I use the tax records, Doreen? I do. I go on to the county site because, hey, it's a seller's market. And guess what? People are selling them their houses themselves. They're putting them on Zillow. So yeah, you darn tootin'. I'm going to check that, and make sure there's nothing. I'm going to check Zillow and Pinellas County. How many of you are familiar, or is everybody familiar with the interactive map on Pinellas County? And does anybody want me to explain the interactive map on Pinellas County?
Yes,
I can do
yes,
that.
please.
Okay. I don't know. Do I need like a show of hands? I don't know. Should I show you the interactive map? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. A couple people do want to see that. So let me just do that now. All right. So let's see. We'll go to Pinellas County. Yeah. Does somebody want to give me an address that, to study, or no? Okay, I lost my connection to the server. Okay. All right. I got a chat. All right. So let's just do. You guys can talk if you want to. Please do. All right, so here we go. Now, here is a neighborhood in Seminole, Florida. And actually, this house right here just sold, okay? So it should pop up on this map. So down at the bottom, if you pull up your county record of the address and you go down to the very bottom of this aerial map, you'll see a tool. It's called Interactive Map of this parcel. And it's really cool. So you click on that and you go past your disclaimer. And now you see these 4 squares here. You click on those. And you can see everything that's sold. Okay. And so you can check that, if you will, against what you're finding on the MLS. Okay. If something's sold off market, it's going to be on here as well. Okay. Now, another tool too, though, is to set that, if you can prove what, let's say this, for example, this house sold for 374.9. Okay. And we go back this far to 2018. And you can see the pricing. Sometimes I'll look to see, all right, for example, this house over here that sold for 647 back in 2018. And I'm appraising, let's say I'm appraising a house in that neighborhood. And this is a very special, exclusive little subdivision of $500,000 plus homes. But guess what? I have to do a 1 mile radius. Part of the rules for that SSR score is a 1 mile radius. Okay. So if I were to be appraising something in this neighborhood and I did a 1 mile radius, do you see any sales for 650? No. But let's say this house is selling for 650 and the appraiser comes in and they have to do a 1 mile radius and they can't, there's no sales within a mile for 650. That's where it gets tricky. Okay. For me, I'm going to say, look, there are sales in this neighborhood for 650 and they just haven't happened recently. And so therefore the subject's not over improved for the neighborhood. In fact, there's nothing, this is an exclusive subdivision and it was necessary for me to go over 1 mile. In fact, I had to go 3 miles to find other exclusive subdivisions just like it that had properties that were the same quality in construction and features. Okay. So it's a lot of creative, creativity and creative writing sometimes, to prove that. Now, can you help an appraiser with that? If you had a sale in that neighborhood for 650, and you wanted to help me, what you would do is you'd say, Patty, this neighborhood was developed, in 2005. And so you cannot compare it to anything around here. It's an exclusive subdivision. It was a exclusive builder, and you can check these other 4 neighborhoods that are, they're over 1 mile away, but they're like the subject, and those are facts. Okay, I think we lost our screen share for a minute. All right. Does that make sense? I'd love some feedback on what I just told you about, this neighborhood. Let's see if you guys are out there really listening. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good information because our neighborhood, you can be in one neighborhood that is at a certain price point and turn the corner and you're in a neighborhood with a significantly lower price point. And that, I maybe not to that degree, but our neighborhoods are pretty diverse, I would say, in pricing, or can be diverse in pricing.
Absolutely. And in fact, let's see if I can get back into here for a minute. I've got an appraisal now that I'm working on in a neighborhood, which is very different. Let's see. Go to and go to processed. All right, so where is it? Not in here. Processing. hang on just a second. Let me check my phone for something here quick. It would be 216 Northeast Jefferson. Why is it doing that? Okay, here it is. Okay, so, well, what we'll do is we'll go back to that interactive map we were just on, okay? 216 Northeast Jefferson. Let me go back to here. We got Pinellas County. And search by address. I'm sorry if I'm not answering your questions. It's everything my brain can do to manipulate all this stuff. 216 Northeast Jefferson. Okay, so pull up this. Okay, so this is a very interesting development here. Okay, so you have this house that's 1,900 square feet, built in 2018, and selling, I can't remember what it's selling for, somewhere of it, in the fours. Okay. And you guys, how many of you are from St. Pete, or how many of you sell in the St. Pete market? You know, I think a lot of you do. So we're going to go down again. You have to click on interactive map to get that ability. You have to go down to the bottom and click on that. And now we're going to go do this. Boy, what luck, how I lucked out, right? Because there's 3 sales right there. They're the same builder, the same model house. Okay, so I really lucked out. But many years, 5 years ago, when I was doing appraisals in St. Pete and people were building these houses, you really had to get creative as an appraiser. You guys, how many of you know the circle streets? Yeah. Well, as you can see, if you did where'd that property go? I lost it. Okay, right here. So if you're on the MLS and you're doing a 1 mile radius and you're evaluating the neighborhood for the lender on this, you're not going to find any sale. I mean, luckily you have these, but you're not going to find anything like it because all these other houses are much older, much different houses. So again, your appraisal score is going to be low confidence, because the machine is going to see all the sales that are within a mile. And let's look at that. Okay. The only reason I use the assessor, Doreen, I kind of got off tangent here. The only reason I use the assessor is just to double check and see if there's not any sales that I could have used that maybe sold off market. It's just another check for me to see if I have all the data that I could possibly have to complete the appraisal. Trust me, if the appraisal's coming in and there's no problem, I'm not going to do all the extra work. I'm just going to put that number on it and do the next appraisal. But I do, when I'm coming in short, I don't take it lightly, because I don't set the prices. The buyers and sellers set the prices. And I'm just making sure I'm following the banking rules and that their collateral is good. And that I'm covered, that I did my due diligence. So now we're going to take and I'll walk you through one comparable search, okay? Let's see. So we'll go to Stellar and we'll open up a search. All right. Now, I'm going to show you exactly what I would do in this instance. The first thing I do, I have a routine, I have a process, and I do the same process every time without fail. And I write a story. I write my value story, I call it. This is what I tell my appraisers that work for me. You didn't write the story. I don't know how you got those comparables or why you used them. They're not even like the subject. So, you better go back to the drawing board. So the first thing I do is I have to do a 1-year sales history of the market area. That is that page you saw. Okay, let me show. I know I'm flipping around a lot, but I want you to see something. Okay, the front of this page, the bank wants to know, the investor that's buying this loan, they want to know the market trends in the neighborhood. They want to know the low and the high prices, the median sale prices. They want to know the age of the homes. They want to know, is the market increasing? Is it stable? Is there a shortage? What's the marketing time? How do you rate the subject? Is it suburban, urban, 75% built up? And not only that, but you have to specify the boundaries that you considered for this neighborhood. And you want to be able to, if somebody were to review your work, you want somebody to be able to duplicate the exact figures that you found. So the first thing you do is you have to do this neighborhood analysis. You have to analyze the neighborhood because the bank wants to know, the investor wants to know, where does this property fit into the neighborhood? How does it fit into the neighborhood? Is it under improved? Is it over improved? What's our risk? What is our risk factor on this? So the first thing I do, is I do a 365-day analysis of the neighborhood. And how do you determine what the neighborhood is? Okay, so the first thing I do to determine what the neighborhood is I look at a 1-mile radius of the subject property. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to get an address here in just a second. I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Okay, 10267 72nd Street, Largo. We're gonna analyze this property right now. I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. 12067 72nd. Where did my 10267 72nd? 10267 72nd, Largo. That says Pinellas Park, so I'm hoping it's the same property. 12067 72nd Street. Okay, 12067. I'm a little nervous, sorry.
I think you have the numbers.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just kind of nervous. Okay, 12067 72nd Street. 12067 72nd Largo. There. Okay, great. So all right, so I didn't put anything here. So what happens when you don't put anything? It does like a quarter of a mile. It just defaults to a quarter. And actually we have quite a bit of data within a quarter of a mile. So I'm gonna do a 1 mile just for the heck of it and do the results and take a look at it on the map. All right, we have a lot of condos in that area. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm not doing the subdivision yet. Okay, although, you know, in a lot of areas like downtown Tampa, downtown St. Pete, there are no subdivisions, you know, so I really rely on the distance ratio because that 1 mile is a big deal. If you go past that 1 mile, you really got to prove why you have to do that. So really just keep that in mind. You really want to try to stay within 1 mile. The other rule is you don't cross major boundaries. Those are outside your neighborhood. If you have to go across Belcher or you have to go across 66th, that's really outside the boundaries of your market area. All right, because you get into another market area when you do that. So let's see if I can try to figure out how to shrink this down. All right, so shrink this down a minute. So really, I'm going to set my boundaries right now. I'm going to say my boundaries are, I have enough data to stick in Pembroke Estates, really. I could set my northern boundary right here at 70th, okay? I can set my southern boundary at 118th and use these as my other boundaries. Now, perhaps I'll discover that this is part of this subdivision right here. All right, so that I would lose these pending sales and maybe they're pertinent. All right, so I'm gonna go all the way, since I can go a mile and I want to capture these up here because it's just the streets look congruent. Okay, so I want to capture those. So I'm going to go all the way up to Ulmerton Road on my northern boundary. I'm going to go to 118th on my southern boundary, and I'm going to do 66th and Belcher for my east and west. Okay. So now I've established my boundary, and I'm going to draw that boundary. And I'm going to stay for my comparable analysis and my data within this boundary. Okay. And then I will delete this shape. That gives me my data. That's my data set that I'm going to work with. And there's plenty of sales, there's plenty of data to work with here for the subject. If there was only 1 or 2, then I would have a reason to go outside of there. But look, folks, I got no reason to go outside of here. I got plenty of data. I have to use the data that I have because the machine knows. The machine knows if, you know, if you skip over sales and you don't use them. Okay, so we will look at these results. Okay. And you have a lot of, and then at this point, I'm going to export all these 128 properties that are within my boundaries. And I put those in a spreadsheet. Okay. And those are going to go, for me, I'm going to analyze the properties, and those are going to go on the front page of that appraisal report. All right. And then, and only then, once I establish what the high and low prices are in the neighborhood, kind of what the neighborhood's like, you have a mixture of, I have to describe the neighborhood. There's a mixture of condos, there's a condo development, there's some commercial, and how much commercial there is, and so on. And then I can narrow it down to the subdivision, which is Pembroke Estates, essentially. And so once done that, I'll narrow it down to Pembroke Estates, and we'll take a look at those. Okay, and there's so many, there's plenty there in Pembroke Estates that now I can just actually go to that subdivision. Sometimes there's only one sale in a given subdivision, but this is, we're lucky because we have a lot of data. Spelled it wrong, apparently.
I think it's Pinebrook Estates.
Is it? Hi, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So now I narrow for my comparables. I want to know exactly what let's see, search here. If anyone has to jump off, don't, you're not going to hurt my feelings. How long we've been on? Over an hour, haven't we? Okay, so here's the subject. It is 1,092 square feet. It has an enclosed porch. It has a large garage. That's interesting. The garage is almost half as big as the house. So, and then, oh, it has a swimming pool. So that's really cool. So this will be an interesting appraisal. I think this is going to be really an interesting one because it has a huge garage and it has a swimming pool. You just don't see, as an appraiser, I don't see that very often. So, okay, so we also, I'm checking out to see kind of my brain is going doo-doo-doo-doo, and I'm looking to see when was that pool put in, how old is that, and so on, just to give me a feel for the property before I pick my selection of my comparable. So, all right, one of the rules in the algorithm is the sales have to be within 6 months, and they have to bracket the subject's features. So I need a sale with a 2-car garage. I need a sale with a pool. I need a sale that's 1,000 square feet or less, or real close to that, to really demonstrate my value. So the first thing I do is I just narrow my criteria down to that heated square feet, and I'm going to go 100 under, and I'm going to go 100 over and see what I get. Okay, I capture 11. So that's a pretty good size data set. Let's see what we have in here. Whoa, those are all condos. We need to rule those out. Okay, so we're going to go over here now and rule out. Oh, it's down here. It's so hard to maneuver with this screen. All right, so we're going to go. Single family. Oh, lovely. We have one comparable. And there it is. Okay, and let's see, how comparable is it? It's got a 2-car garage. Ooh, looks like it needs a new roof. There's only 2 pictures of it, so we know it's rough inside, don't we, folks? So that's my one comparable. Now what do I do? Can I give this appraisal back? I don't really want to do this much work. No, I'm stuck with it. I accepted the appraisal. So now we don't have any sales in the development. If we're in the right development, let's make sure we are in the right development here. Okay. Let's go here. Pinebrook Estates. Pinebrook Estates. And we went back a whole year. Wow. Okay, so now, wow, you guys, this would be a challenge for you if you were selling this house. You know, there's nothing like it that's sold in the neighborhood. So this is probably a good example. All right, so now what do I do? I'm gonna go. Up a little bit. We got a few more here. Okay. See how much it jumped up. And look how old this sale is. It's from February. So that's from February, March. Okay, this is where I hang my hat right here. This house is slightly bigger than the subject, maybe 100 square feet. It has a front garage. The subject had a front garage. And boy, it's completely remodeled. So I have to start telling the story. Like at this point, I would open up my Microsoft Word document or WordPad or something, and I would say, you know, when researching this neighborhood, I searched out, you know, I narrowed, there were 35 properties that sold in the subdivision, and 20 of those were single family homes, and there was only 7 properties which were similar in size to the subject, and they were all larger than the subject. So at this point, you know, the only choice I have is to go outside the subdivision to find that smaller house, because I have to bracket the size. Let's see, let me go back here. I just want to take this completely out for a second. And I want to sort by, I'm not used to this screen. Yeah, that's not the screen I want. There we go. Oh my God, there's one, but guess what? It's nothing. Is that the one that was just rough as all get out in terrible shape? There it is, right? You know, this appraisal score is going to not be very good because you know why? Because I'm going to use this sale because it's in the subdivision. It also has no pool, and it was in poor condition. Is it a good comparable? No, but the rules say I have to bracket the square footage. Now, what I could do is I have the facts. Here are the facts. If you want to give the appraiser the facts and you want to say, look, there's 35 sales in this neighborhood. And there's the best comparable is 73, 74, 119,000. It's just like the subject. And, you know, we got a purchase price of 310 here. And I know that sold for 298, but we had 10 offers on this property. So, you know, there you go. And now where do we head from here? You know, where do we head from here? This sale is where I'm going to hang my hat, and it just closed. It just closed in January. There's no way I'm going to appraise your house for 310. because I have a perfect comparable. It's a little bit larger and it's just like yours. And it was only 3 weeks ago that it closed. So sorry, you're not going to make appraisal value on this house if you sold it for 310. All right. Questions?
When you say bracket the square footage, or what do you mean by bracket?
Okay, so the rules of appraising are you must bracket all features. And when I say bracket, I mean your subject has to fit in between these two brackets right here. Okay, you can't use all sales that are superior and make subtractions and call that and say that's the value. You can't use all sales that are inferior and make all pluses and say that's the value. You have to have a high and a low. You have to bracket. If it's a 2-car garage, you need a 2-car garage to compare it to. If you're adjusting if your subject has no garage, has a 2-car garage and all the other houses don't have a garage, and you're going to give $10,000 credit for your subject's garage, how did you get that $10,000? If you don't have another sale that shows what that garage is worth. Maybe it's not worth a damn thing because maybe it's a seller's market and people don't care if it has a garage or not. They want it because there's a shortage. So you can't necessarily, make arbitrary adjustments if you don't have something to prove it. That's why you have to bracket the features. In other words, if I lined up, you see these houses that have pools, okay? Let's see if I can sort that. It's not going to let me sort it. But you have houses that have a pool and you have houses that don't have a pool. So if these two houses are identical, right here, they're both built in 1978, and they both have a 2-car garage and they both are moderately updated, and then one has a pool and one doesn't. How much is the pool worth? Can you tell by looking at those two prices? Yeah, it's $25,000 difference. You get me?
Yep. If you have enough pool homes though to work with, well, what does enough mean? But let's say you've got 20 comps there and half of them have pools, do you need to take into consideration the non-pool homes?
It depends. Here's a non-pool home that's exactly the same square footage. Now this is weird. Okay, check this out. Here's a non-pool home. It's the same square footage as this home, okay? They're sold for the same price. So now, is a pool worth $25,000?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, this house sold for $295. And here's this house sold for $298. They're sold for the same price. One has a pool, one doesn't. There's a mystery there to solve. As an appraiser, I'm thinking, what's the mystery? Why did this bring so much price, such a high price without a pool? Guess what? There's no rhyme or reason, in this market. So the moral of this story is, price it right. Hell, I don't know what to tell you guys. There's no rhyme or reason. Look at this. This house is beautiful. Yeah, it's modeled. It's got the flooring. It's decorated really nice. It's got the barn door. Everything's completely. It's got a big walk-in closet. Huge yard. Definitely could build a pool in that yard if they wanted to. All right, so that sold. That just closed. Okay. Let's see. Going back. Where'd that other house go? Here's this house. Hey, did that other house have a garage, guys? Did you notice? which house how would you rate these two houses comparable wise? I mean, that's a beautiful pool. So did this person underprice this house? I mean, it went under contract. It went on the market 12/10. It sold in 2 days. It has a beautiful pool. And then you have this house. That has a 2-car garage. It's beautiful with no pool. It closed in 4 days. You get my, it's anybody's guess. It's anybody's guess. I mean, I have to appraise that person's home that has a pool that's a little bit smaller than these two houses. It's almost 200 square feet smaller. And the way I get my adjustments and the way I figure out my value is I do what's called matched pairs. These two houses are a matched pair. They're both remodeled. They both have a 2-car garage, and they both sold in the same month. One has a pool and one doesn't, and they sold for the same price.
Patty, I have a question.
So yeah, hold it just 1 second. So it's a seller's market, people. This person that bought that house for the same price as the pool house, they paid a lot. What they did is because there's no houses with a pool, and that house was beautiful, so they paid for it. There's no rhyme or reason. They didn't say, well, wait a minute, we're not going to pay $300 for this. It doesn't have a pool. That other house that's pending right now and went under contract 2 weeks ago. It's the same, and it has a pool, and it sold for the same. Why should we pay the same? Guess what? Why should they? But guess what? They did. They did.
And not everyone wants a pool. They may not have wanted a pool.
Right.
Yeah. So is a pool worth $25,000? Here it wasn't. This is why appraising is so subjective. It's your appraisal is going to be as good as the luck that you get with the appraiser that you get and the comps that there are. And, you can't predict it. In this market, you can't even predict it. In a buyer's market, you can predict it. You can predict it very easily because, the buyers have choices. They're not paying the same price for a house that's remodeled versus one that's not, because there's just nothing to buy. So, okay, we'll remodel the kitchen. We don't care. We still want this house. We'll still pay the same price that somebody paid one that wasn't was remodeled. Doreen, what was your question?
So 2 questions, actually. I'll go back to the one about the garage, but when you're obviously, I think everybody probably has this issue with comparing 2 homes that look like they're upgraded nicely, but actually one is like superior in value upgrades. You can't see that, and you can't go into them to see that to compare it properly. So, it could be that the other one that sold higher without the pool, it looked to me as if it may have been some really high quality upgrades compared to the one with the pool. So, is it possible that those have higher value on them because they're higher upgrades, higher valued upgrades?
Okay, so that is where that's where you can help the appraiser. If you already know, if you say, look, when you do this appraisal, if you're going to try to compare this house to that house, those upgrades were not the same quality and finish. I was in that house.
I'm just saying in general,
my buyer went to the open house and it wasn't the same.
As an agent, just coming out of the whatever, trying to price a listing, and you come across this situation, and you don't know if those upgrades in that other house have, if they were cheap or if they were expensive. So, it's difficult to tell how to put how to price the property you're looking at to list. And does an appraiser, how do they do that? When you're trying to compare those two houses we're looking at right now, how do you know those upgrades aren't superior to the other one?
Well, okay, most appraisers aren't going to take the time or care.
Okay, because so it's
They're
not,
getting paid $300. They're not going to spend 12 hours, and they're going to just plug in the numbers and let them land and submit the report.
I'm talking about
Okay.
you aren't like other appraisers. I mean, so is it not?
So, well, I'm going to call this person, this realtor, and I'm going to say, wow, you got $300,000 and no pool, and there's a house down the street that sold for 300 and had a beautiful pool. What was the difference? And they may know. They may know, or they may not know.
Okay.
It's a crazy market we're in, Doreen.
So
It's crazy.
The other question about the garage, not a lot of houses in St. Pete that I've dealt with are side entry garages, which I think are actually preferred by me. So does an appraiser put a higher value on a side entry garage?
No. I mean, I might
Okay.
take it into consideration.
Thanks.
Now, when you're talking about a detached garage versus attached, that's, yeah,
Okay.
but not necessarily, Now, if I have a range of value and my subject sale price is bracketed, and I have a 2-car garage that's, built like you said, and then one that's side load like this one, I might comment, the range of value is this to this, comparable number 3 is sold for more, and it's at the higher end of the range because it had a nicer garage and floor plan,
Okay.
I might comment on that. I might comment on it, but there isn't a specific adjustment for it.
I see.
When, keep in mind, you have to, according to the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, you have to explain every adjustment that you make. You can't just pull those adjustments because you feel like it or you think they're this. You have to extract it. So in the case of this adjustment for $25,000 for a pool, I did have a couple pairs here that sold, for 275, 265, 270, let's say, without a pool. And then I had a couple that were just like it that sold with a pool for 3. So I can say I did a paired sales analysis and a pool's 25,000. And probably no one's going to argue with that. Because if for some reason, the only reason an appraisal ever comes back to haunt you is if the person doesn't make their mortgage. Then the first thing that Fannie Mae does is see if they can make the lender who made the loan buy that loan back. And the only way they can make the lender buy the loan back is if the appraisal wasn't very good and the lender didn't read the appraisal very well and the appraiser didn't follow the rules. If the appraiser followed the rules and, the appraisal was done to the guidelines, then Fannie Mae has to keep that loan and they're stuck with it. But, your appraisal will come under extreme scrutiny at that time. I write every appraisal as if the person's not going to make their mortgage payment. Because I've been in this business for 20 years and I know what happens to appraisers when people don't make their mortgage payments. The appraisers get hung out to dry. So I make sure all my appraisals are bulletproof. I write the story, I explain it,
I have a question about the 1 mile rule, the SSR rule.
Okay,
So in a lot of neighborhoods, you sometimes get plenty of data, to base your CMA on when listing. So do you have to use the 1 mile rule if you have enough data within the neighborhood to do your CMA to price property?
no, you want to use the most comparable properties. Obviously, if there's all sales in Pembroke Estates, then that's
But
what
you
you
don't
want
have-
to use.
So as an appraiser, do you have to use 1 mile? Do you have to go outside the neighborhood to get other comps or not?
No, not if, no,
Okay.
if you have to, the only time you have to is when
You don't have
there
enough?
aren't any,
Okay, that's what I thought. I just need a
There's
clarification.
plenty, you can't.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, oh, there's another webinar in 10 minutes, so I have to let you guys go. We can do this again. I don't know. I'd love your feedback. My email is patty.smith@kw.com. Please email me if you have, other questions or anything else you want to talk about. We can make time to talk if I didn't cover anything. I kind of did this on the fly today, so I apologize for not being prepared. Next time I will be more prepared and have something, I hope it was helpful, and I hope to see you guys again. So
It was, thank you.
thank you. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
Patty.
Bye-bye.